Thank you, Vishal. You can stay on stage because now we are opening up the panel. And please welcome Danish from Wolt, which is a DoorDash company. I want to bundle the merchants, so please sit right next to.
I took the seat
Vishal.
first. Yeah.
Then we have Christian from Commerz Globalpay. Anton from Revolut, and Julius from Stripe.
You want to sit here? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for joining. And please don't forget, there will be a QR code shown up if you have questions. And let's start with some specific questions to you gentlemen before we circulate a few general ones. And Vishal, thanks for the insights on all the regulatory hurdles and pitfalls there are on payouts. What I was wondering, what are the payment methods you use for paying in and topping up the Tipico account? Which ones are the ones reducing frictions and why?
Sure. Yeah, for that, first we have to understand where Tipico is operating, right? So, like what gentleman from Stripe presented in the localization, right? So we have to understand where Tipico is operating. It's the main markets are Germany and Austria. And then if we go from the psychology of the users, users want to get money quickly out and quickly in, right? You cannot do anything on the platform if you cannot get the money in, right? So this is where the wallets come into picture mainly, right? So wallets are most popular as a payment method for this particular industry. And if we have Germany and Austria, then PayPal goes without saying, right? So PayPal is the most used or famous payment method. Then, and there are also other reasons behind PayPal. One is it does not charge anything to the user. The other thing is it is pretty simple, intuitive. Third thing is it has multiple sources in the backend, right? So you can select the funding source in the PayPal. And then last but not the least, it is compliant with the regulations of the markets that we are operating. The second one that's more relevant or more used is obviously because of the markets, bank transfers. And now because we have now instant bank transfers, and we are using multiple providers, so Klarna, Trustly, open banking in the way. So that's the second one. And also because of the AML rules and traceability and auditability, bank transfers are the best one. So also they are fine for Tipico in the way. And then comes the cards. So these are, I would say, the most prevalent payment methods that are there on Tipico and that are used on Tipico. We also have others like Neteller, Skrill as a wallet, or 𝗃𝗃 or other payment methods. And the last but not the least, we also have cash to digital, which is also very, very much used because we have a lot of retail shops. So cash to digital is also one of the very, very, very famous payment method that is being used at Tipico. Right.
Thank you. Danish, you're also operating in a vertical which is quite specific. You have to deal with hangry customers.
Yes.
So I was wondering, what's the biggest hurdle for conversion? Is it to get the payment done or all the delivery details you need to bring the food as soon as possible to the customers?
That's a great question. I think for a merchant like Wolt, which is a marketplace tech company, and we build a lot of verticals internally to make sure that the user reaches the checkout screen. As you rightly said, these are like hungry customers. It's a very critical point and very high intent point. So we make sure that we have the right selection, affordability, the right support, and the right logistic network to support the user delivery or the product delivery. And at the end of the day, it's ultimately about the payment experience as well. So all of this plays a lot of role here. But I believe it's more on the payment side. If I have to really prioritize, it's the delivery, entering the delivery details and stuff like that really drives the intent, but the payment actually captures it. And that's very, very critical for a business like ours. Well, when we talk about payment conversion, I think a lot of us have already spoken about, like, making sure that it's invisible and it's seamless. And the best checkout is when user don't even remember it, and make sure that the food reaches. And while enjoying that pizza, the user won't really say, hey, while using Wolt, I really loved the checkout experience. It would be actually about the food, right? So that's what we need to make sure, that we stay behind the scenes and make sure that the checkout and the payment experience remains seamless.
Thank you. Anton, when I read in the preparation for this panel that Revolut is on stage, I was a bit surprised, because I have to admit I didn't know that you're on the merchant side or in acquiring. So, and you said this is a little bit coming out party for you on this topic. So I think we're all highly interested to learn, why is Revolut going into acquiring, and what are you going to do, and how is this paying in on conversion?
Good question. First of all, who here has a Revolut account? About half, a little more than half. Good. So you've heard about the Revolut ecosystem from a retail point of view, what we do for retail users when you travel, there's no FX. And we really want to be a one-stop shop for all things money, where you can manage whether it's travel, buying an eSIM that's related to your travel, sending money to friends, etc. And we have this ecosystem also on the business side, where we enable merchants that are businesses to manage FX transactions, to manage corporate cards, pay-ins, payouts, etc. And acquiring was kind of the last piece of the puzzle here, for us to really have that financial ecosystem, a one-stop shop for merchants to do anything they need with regards to their business in one place. So today, Revolut has 70 million customers on the retail side. We have 1 million customers that are using our business services. The acquiring department is roughly 5 years old, and in the last 3 years, we've grown 3x year on year, and we're on track to do 3x this year as well. And we're a full-stack acquirer, and the ecosystem between the retail users and the business side means we understand both sides of the coin. We're an issuer, we're a processor, and we're an acquirer, all built in-house in one platform, global platform. And I think this insight on being on both sides and having a sort of full in-house platform really helps us out with being scalable and building scalable solutions. And then, of course, we have a payment method called Revolut Pay, which is an account-to-account payment method. It's a true one-click checkout experience. We also work with Stripe on this, with embedded loyalty in it that I'm happy to talk about later. But the loyalty component at an APM level is a really unique proposition, which we see drive user retention and really good engagement and conversion at point of checkout.
Interesting. So it's a little bit like growing from the consumer and retail banking side to the merchant side, yes, which is the opposite strategy like we see with Stripe or Block, who are coming from the merchant side and going a little bit the other way, right?
Very much so, yeah.
All right. Christian, you have over 2 decades of payment experience, but you have some news as well. You're since, I think, 2 to 3 weeks in a new role as well, right?
Yeah.
And I have 2 questions. From your perspective, what are the biggest drivers for conversion? And in your new role as head of product at Commerz Globalpay, which one will you focus on?
Okay, let me start with this, the second part first. So simply speaking, what we have seen here already in the presentation is payment is really diverse, and the requirements are really diverse. So we saw a great checkout on Stripe. Simply speaking, it's also a nice shop with a very streamlined checkout, but the reality is, as Julius already said, in most cases on the shopping side, completely different. Every time I open Amazon, I go crazy because I'm overwhelmed with all the information on the page. And on the other side, this is specific requirements. So meaning, if we look at Wolt specific requirements, if we look at gaming, online gaming, betting, very specific requirements. If we look at airlines, very special requirements. I have seen all the industries, and most important is the ecosystem is different. So behind it, and you need to understand the ecosystem to be able to deliver the right proposition. So meaning payment, what I want to say is most of the UX and the checkout conversion is determined upfront and not in the payment. I would say payment is sometimes the less important part in it. So simply speaking, what I do is quite simple to understand more or less where we are. If we look at the stack of payment, we have, let's say, the processing platform. So speed, latency, I would say tick. I remember times 20 years ago, we were talking about a payment has to be faster than 10 seconds. Nowadays, everyone would close the browser window if the payment isn't done within 10 seconds. So it's about the UX, it's about the integration layer. Do we have the right integration for the right customers you want to address? If it's APIs, powerful APIs, to be flexible, if it's ready-made plugins, with a click, you are done. Then it goes on into how can you drive the UX, improve things, like Stripe is doing with, I don't know, name, address capture, because as you said, it's one of my biggest personal pains is always that the autofill doesn't work. It's so fucking easy to do, sorry, on a website, but it doesn't work. By the way, on Shopify, it always works. And then going beyond into more or less the value-added service, providing analytics to customers, helping them to understand where they lose conversion, where they can improve conversion. So meaning, as I'm new, I'm just looking at and trying to understand what market do we address. Because do we address retailers, where we need this type of easy solution, click and you are done? Or is the complex where I need verification of 𝗶𝘃𝗀𝗵𝘁𝘀, for example, or for Wolt where I need, I don't know, tokenization and other mechanisms. So, and this is why payment is so interesting and never boring, because the complexity is not what we see as a consumer, but it's the complexity we see as the industry.
So you really need to understand the specific requirements of the verticals, the merchants, etc., right?
Yeah, it's always the go-to-market fit, but which is true for probably for every product in the world. You need to have the right product for the right go-to-market strategy.
And I'd like to continue with Julius. Stripe is known as a very data-driven company, and we all know you can't manage what you can't measure. So how do I actually measure conversion? What are the key KPIs you would take a look at when analyzing data sets?
That's a great question. I'll preface again with saying that the vast majority of merchants today aren't even really set up to capture the right data points, aren't even able to evaluate conversion or any type of data that they have on their checkout. Sometimes when we talk to merchants, they don't have a full visibility of what payment method, for example, drove what volume or what percentage of their customers has been using a particular payment method. So it starts at the very, very basics, which is in your checkout, which tools do you use to measure? Like, how do you implement them on the technical side? Obviously, again, if you're using some of the Stripe pre-built components, that is automatically done. Yeah. And you can start by very simple things like looking at, hey, what is the share of payment methods that we see? And then you start becoming more sophisticated. You start with looking at sessions. A consumer starts a payment session when they're in their checkout flow. And you obviously see through the checkout flow where the drop-offs happen, but in the specific payment section, you look at what payment method do they select before they drop off, for example. How far in the payment process do they go? And it depends on who you're integrated with, which signals they send to you. So when you're talking about card payments, do you drop off in the 3DS step? Do you have a lot of users doing 3DS? And then you get to the very sophisticated level 3, I'd say, where you do A/B testing. And again, it's something that we offer out of the box in our components, where you can say, hey, let me, to a certain portion of my consumers, play out payment method X. So let's say 20% of your consumers in Germany get Klarna displayed in the playout, and 80% of your consumers in Germany have Klarna hidden in the checkout. And then you can isolate the effect of adding Klarna to your checkout by measuring the exact conversion uplift it has on this particular audience. And you can do this for Germany, you can do this for Switzerland, you can do it with all kinds of payment methods, all kinds of combinations, to kind of go to your point, right? And to your point around Tipico, what is the right setup of payment methods, the right setup of things that you want to show in your particular industry, in your particular use case? And it'll allow you to do something which I think is super important. I always like to think about payment intent. Checkout is always fucking annoying, by the way. Like the checkout should just like go away at some point. It should just be seamless, right? Because customers have made a decision and they just want to get through with it, and you don't want to stop them in this. But there are differences. There are low intent and high intent customers. And low intent customers, maybe typically, let's say online shopping, you're shopping for a shirt, you want to make sure that consumers convert fast. And so payment method conversion really, really matters. But then there are high intent customers, like the Taylor Swift tickets, right? Consumers are going to do everything to pay for those tickets. And so you can offer payment methods that might be cheaper, that might be have more advantages for you as a retailer. Like maybe you don't offer buy now, pay laters that are expensive. Maybe you offer something like open banking or Vero. Maybe you put it up on the very top of your checkout because you know they're going to pay no matter what. So I think that's very important to understand when you're thinking about like who are you actually selling to, the verticals, etc. Anyway, long-winded answer, but
so the KPIs would be?
I'd say the KPIs would be, number one, what payment methods are being used. Number two, where do you see drop-offs in payment sessions, right? And then number three is just which payment methods are the most performant in A/B testing.
Thank you. I like the point with the A/B testing. Vishal, Danish, is this something you regularly do?
Can I?
It's common practice.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
We do a lot.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of experimentation with A/B testing, and most of them pays off in the way. But I can quote one of the example, like one of the biggest pain point for us is verification. One we already solved in my last presentation, but the other one is with cards. Still with the cards, if you want to know that the card belongs to the player, we are still using Jumio. And which is, physically you have to scan the card and then, someone gives approval from the call and all those things. And the thing is that now we are also experimenting in the way that if someone initiated a deposit with card and then we reach to the verification step, we just pop them up and say, do you want to use Apple Pay or Google Pay? And then they go to Apple Pay and Google Pay where it is automated in a more simple way for that. So these are the kind of A/B testing and experiments that we do, and it really improved a lot of things on our side. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, on A/B testing, I can add, like, when we operate at a scale where we are operating in 30+ countries and consumers are ordering twice a day, thrice a day, that's where we see even smallest changes, like maybe, as Julius mentioned, like changing the order of payment method can drive a lot of value, because as merchants, especially high intent merchants where consumers are on the checkout screen with an intent to make sure that the food gets delivered very quickly, we want the user not to even think for a second on the checkout screen, because all the thinking has already been done before while selecting, while checking the prices and adding those add-ons. Checkout screen should remain where the user should not think even for a second and just slide through the payment. And that's where small changes that we test our hypothesis using A/B test gives us a lot of learning and helps us improve and port this learning across continents. And that's why A/B testing is really, really crucial when we experiment with adding new payment methods, changing the order, even sometimes in the back end, choosing a provider based on smart routing that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The more we speak about this topic, I'm more of the feeling that it's everything about data. And I'd like to circle a question to the PSPs on this topic. You always have a view on the whole portfolio, on the whole cross-merchant data, right? How important is this to create a value proposition for your merchants?
You mean based on AI?
On general payment behaviors, not just specific ones, but that you can really say, okay, we have a view on a total set of merchants in a specific vertical, and we can derive certain behaviors and educate customers or merchants on how they should build their checkout.
It is quite important. It is, I don't know, benchmarking, I would call it, or call it merchant analytics, however you want to call. And it's not only in the online world. We're always speaking here for the online world, but of course we still have retailers with physical stores. And of course, for example, if they have different stores, they would like to be able to compare. And payment data is already there and can provide them an analysis. Why is the average ticket size in a certain store, also you offer the same products, higher than another one? We have the data and we can provide the data, and this is what we do. But it's a question to my fellow colleagues here from the PSP side. I find it sometimes very frustrating. We have all these great analytics. We fight for 2% conversion in the background. But on the other side, if you look at the stores and the shopping sites, I see there are so tremendous opportunities for merchants to improve more or less the overall checkout. It starts with AI search, not talking about agentic commerce, but improving just the search so a customer can more easily find what he's looking for. I don't know, a better presentation of the product, more product data. And this is at least what I would like to see. Because it's nice if we fight for 2% conversion, but you, I don't know, lose 20% because the user doesn't like to go through the stores. And for example, my personal pain point is always, you have a coupon code, you click through the checkout, you don't see it on the last page, you go back, you search where is the coupon code entry field. So, and this is the pain where I believe, from a UX perspective, merchants have to much more look at the user experience in their store. We can help them on the payment side. We do a lot on the payment side altogether, but this is where I see a lot, and this is my recommendation to merchants, look at the checkout itself.
Preach. Like, something that drives me crazy sometimes is that you have fairly quote-unquote small merchants. Like, you have the big ones. You have Zalando, you have Otto. Like, these people deserve to have big payment teams. Like, they optimize every single aspect. Like, they're beholden to shareholders. But many small merchants, I'd say, look, just take infrastructure that's out on the market that allows you to dial up your level of sophistication, right? And when in Stripe lingo, you do like the prefab checkout, then you do checkout elements, like small components that you style yourself. And on the back end, you can initially just let Stripe do all the optimizations. Like, we have all the data. We know which buyers will use what payment method typically. But there are instances where over time, you will become more sophisticated and you might want to apply certain things yourself, like the A/B testing that you can do in Stripe. And then maybe at some point when you're really big, you're like, okay, we'll build our own checkout because we know it best. We know it best for our industry. Like, these prefab components don't work for us. And that is totally fine. But I think there are real opportunity costs, right? You have teams of highly educated, highly paid individuals in payment and commerce teams that are sometimes working on topics that, in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about like autocomplete doesn't work, but there are thoughts about implementing orchestrators, right? Like, these are the things where I'm like, hey, there's real opportunity costs to making these like incremental improvements where think about the whole thing holistically and outsource as much as you can initially until you reach a stage where those investments relative to your size make sense, right? 2% conversion increase. At what size does that make sense, right? $1 billion+ in merchant in GMV. I don't know. It's one of my pet peeves where I get very passionate about.
I have a slightly different approach to data from Revolut's point of view, because we are both the issuer and the acquirer. So we can see where our consumers spend. We can see how they spend, with what merchants they interact, with what brands across categories. And in the Revolut app, we also have a section called Lifestyle, where merchants can promote themselves, give extra booster on Revolut points, etc. So we can actually use our data to help drive net new traffic to merchants. We can see trends across industries. We can see trends across different cohorts of verticals and similar. So we tend to help our merchants in that sense instead and say, hey, we can help you process. We can help you with Revolut Pay. We can also help you drive net new customers through the Revolut network, whether that is through us promoting the brands promoting us, or being visible in the Revolut app. So that's one of the main benefits that I think many acquirers don't do today. Actually, how do you help the customer get more customers?
Thank you very much. I think this is wonderful insights. But on the other hand, does this resonate with you, or does it also sound a bit scary, creating a big dependency on pre-built checkout components, on the data which the acquirers see and you only see a fraction, acquirers channeling customers to your site, or is this something where you say, yes, let's embrace it?
I can maybe add like a merchant perspective to that. I certainly agree with what Julius mentioned, that for small businesses, it does make sense to let the money come in through an infrastructure that has already been built after a lot of research and market learning. For merchants like us, operating to such a wider scale of countries with so many different operators and regulators, we believe that there is more that we can do in terms of making this data actionable. I believe when we talk about payments, where payment providers are much deep into this ecosystem and merchants want payments to act as an enabler for their business, we tend to optimize on the data where we talk about our core business. Why is the user dropping off? What are the core reasons? How can we make sure that the user completes the order? While payments and payment providers sees the data across the end-to-end journey of the payments, right? From the card issuer to all the way how the money gets settled into the accounts. And that data is intense. That data might have things that are very, very relevant for us, for a food delivery versus maybe a gambling merchant. But on the other side, how can we make sure that this data really brings actionable insights for merchants like us, and not just talk about, hey, your session conversion rate is low, your payment authorization versus payment authentication has this much gap, but how can I make sure that I'm getting more users, more orders, and making sure that my customers are really happy with the right selection, affordability, and the support that we have built on top of this payment foundation.
And to add to this point, actually, like it's really interesting because we do get a lot of data, but many merchants, and we display that data to merchants, but not every merchant has the capabilities that Wolt, and we actually work together too, so not every merchant has the capabilities in large teams to process data at a scale that Wolt does. And so we often help them do this. And I'll give you a very concrete example where Vero is live, conversion rate is roughly in the 50s, so 50%-ish. And so I can tell you why that is, because we have the data in the back end, and there are two effects at play. One effect is the curious customer effect. We see a lot of customers clicking on Vero and being super interested in it, and then coming back to the checkout and completing, right? So they click the abandoned payment button at the top left. And then there's another portion of customers that doesn't find the banks that they work with in the Vero bank selector. And so we get these signals, and we can display this back both to the scheme. So this is our job as a PSP to work with our partners and tell them, hey guys, these are things that you can improve. And we can also tell the story to the merchant why it's worth investing into certain payment methods and what they're seeing. And so I think this is kind of our job, is to help make sense of the data, whether giving it raw or telling the story around it in charts, graphs, or conversations.
The conversion will increase since Commerzbank will join Vero.
Good comment.
Quick, actually, Vero is super interesting. We're seeing a much higher share of wallet than we've been expecting, and we've been live for 3 months with 150 merchants, I think.
It's a result of, let's say, the strong brand marketing they did since more than 1 year. So everyone in Germany is curious. Everyone has seen Vero probably multiple times advertised. So people are curious.
And there's actually a question.
There's still a few questions I'd like to, because they fit very well. And one is express checkout, customer-centric, but a loss in data. What do you think?
Yeah. I definitely agree in the way and how express checkout works. So it works perfectly for the industry that I'm working in, especially if you see PayPal and we also ask the same kind of thing to the other provider, and once that is there, it works perfectly fine in the way, because you have a repeated customer coming up, and then you are taking out many steps in between, and also if you see PayPal is also not, it is offering you not to redirect the customer in the express checkout flow, right? So that is the best for a merchant, right? You are not losing, or you're not asking the customer to go anywhere else. They still remain on your platform, and then you get the result out of it, right? So yeah, in the way, yes, but I cannot say what customer-centric or loss in data, I didn't understood, but yeah, customer-centric, it definitely, as I said, it helps a lot in the way. Express checkout.
You share the view, Danish?
My view is that it's very easy. The kind of data, the volume payments generate end-to-end, even for a single transaction, it is very easy for any party involved to get into the analysis paralysis of, hey, why that happened? As merchant, I care that so long as the express checkout works for me and make sure that the payment goes through, it's wonderful. I don't believe that we're losing the data here. I think we learn more from failures than the successful payments. So in my view, express checkout definitely is a win-win so long as it's working.
Yeah, thank you. There's one question to Stripe. Not sure if you want to take it, Julius, on when you do click to pay.
Did Visa plant this one? Or,
I thought so. It's scheme. It brings from the scheme, so feel free to skip it.
No, I mean, we're continuously, so checkouts have limited space, and we're talking about specifically our own elements too. You saw them, right? You saw the payment links. There were a bunch of the express payment buttons at the very top. Link our very own, PayPal in Germany, Amazon Pay. We're continuously evaluating which ones we put in this very, very valuable space. And from our point of view, it has to be massively conversion increasing. That's very valuable space on the checkout. So we're continuously evaluating, and we're also taking a local perspective, right? Talking to Twint about their Twint Express checkout, for example.
Thank you.
So,
I'd like to finish the panel with one last question for everyone. Please make it very brief. What are the small, often overseen changes which create relevant input, like from your experience, which you found surprising? And let's
I can quickly give in 10 seconds or less. So I can give one example, like what we did was localization of the payment logos of the banks, right, with one of the banking provider. And we have never thought of that, okay, there was a single name of the payment provider, and then that provider says, okay, you can also put the bank logo on the, and then if you go to the customer psychology, they are able to connect to the bank logo and say, okay, my bank is there and I can do the transaction, right?
Thank you.
So this is, yes.
I think I love the curious customer analogy. I believe it's about removing the uncertainty. Sometimes the best payment flows are not the faster one, but the certain ones, the predictable ones. Yeah.
Thank you.
Super quick, maybe old school, but the promotion code field, I think you should hide it. Because I think if a customer doesn't have a promo code and they see it, they will go to the web, search for a promo code, drop out of checkout, might not complete the purchase.
Good view.
currency conversion. Add the currency that your users expect, and then add the local payment methods underneath.
Christian?
Autofill, discount codes, the right payment methods, localized, plus what you already said, over it in the customer's currency.
Perfect. Many, many thanks, gentlemen. I think I have the feeling we haven't even started to touch the topic. There's so much we could unravel here, but I hope you found it value creating. So thanks for this panel.
Thank you.